Welcome to the Tokenized Economy. In today's explainer, we're digging into the four big models for tokenized equity markets to figure out how they really differ. So let's get right into it. We've all heard the names, right? The CSD, the broker-dealer, exchange-led, and issuer-native models. But just knowing the list of definitions doesn't really tell you much. The real question is, what's the fundamental difference between them? We're going to go way beyond what they are to really understand what makes them tick. You know, when you really look at these models, they're not just minor technical tweaks. They actually represent totally different philosophies about how our financial markets should even work. So, to cut through all that complexity, we're going to use a super simple framework. Just 3 core questions. That's it. Think of these 3 questions as our guide. First, where is the record of ownership actually kept? Second, who's calling the shots? Who's really in control? And finally, what's the whole point? Are we just trying to be a bit more efficient, or are we aiming for a complete reinvention of the market? Let's use this to break it all down. All right, let's put our framework to the test. We're going to apply those 3 questions, ownership, control, and the goal of the change, to each of the 4 models one by one. By the end of this, I promise you'll have a crystal clear map of this whole new landscape. So, first things first, let's talk about ownership. I mean, it doesn't get more fundamental than that, right? In each of these models, where does that single source of truth, that golden record that says who owns what, actually live? With the CSD model, that's the Central Securities Depository model, well, there's no huge revolution here. The blockchain is basically just a new fancy messaging system. The real record of who owns what, that stays exactly where it is today, firmly anchored in those traditional CSD systems. Okay, now this one is a super important distinction. In the broker-dealer model, you, the investor, don't actually own the share itself. It's more like you hold a token that's a kind of claim ticket. It gives you all the economic exposure. So you get the benefit if the price goes up and the risk if it goes down. But the broker-dealer, they're the ones holding the actual share for you. The exchange-led model is, well, it's kind of the middle ground. It really is like a bridge connecting the old world and the new. Ownership here is sort of hybrid. Some records are on the blockchain, while others are still in the old school systems. It's a definite step towards a new way of doing things. And then we have the issuer-native model. And wow, this one's the big one. This is the biggest leap. Here we're not just putting a new layer on top of the old system. The ownership record is born digital. It's created and it lives right on the blockchain from day one. This is about as close as you can get to a truly native digital asset. Okay, so that's ownership. Now, let's move on to our second question, which builds right on top of this. Who's actually in control? Who's running the show and managing the whole system in each of these setups? Yeah, no big surprises with the CSD model. The big players today, the CSDs that handle all the settlement and record keeping, they're still the ones in charge. Pretty much business as usual. Now, with the broker-dealer model, control shifts. It moves to the intermediaries. Think of the broker-dealers as the gatekeepers. They're the ones who find the assets, wrap them up in a token, and then control how they get out to investors. And the exchange-led model? The name pretty much gives it away, right? The exchanges stay right in the center of everything. They're the hub for all the trading, making sure there's liquidity so you can actually buy and sell stuff easily. And here's where things get really disruptive. With the issuer-native model, control takes a massive shift away from all the middlemen and goes right back to the company that created the asset in the first place. The issuers themselves get to set the rules for ownership right from the very beginning. Okay, so we've covered ownership and we've covered control. Our last question really gets to the so what of it all. What's the goal of each model? What part of the market are they actually trying to fix, or maybe even totally reinvent? The CSD model, at its heart, is all about optimization. It's not trying to blow anything up. It's just using tokenization to make existing processes, like settlement, faster, cheaper, and more efficient. Think evolution, not revolution. The broker-dealer model is all about access. Its main goal is to use tokenization to break down expensive assets into tiny, affordable pieces, fractionalization. This just blows the doors open for way more people, for regular investors who maybe couldn't get into certain markets before. With the exchange-led model, the focus is on a core upgrade. We're talking about upgrading the market's plumbing, the trading and settlement systems themselves, by plugging in new technology to create a more modern, efficient marketplace. And the issuer-native model, while this one is the most revolutionary, The focus here is on completely rethinking the very beginning of the process, how an asset is born and how ownership is recorded right from its inception. This isn't about renovating the house, it's about pouring a completely new foundation. All right, so we've looked at all the individual pieces. Now it's time to put the puzzle together. And when we step back and look at what we found, a really clear and maybe even surprising pattern starts to emerge about where this is all going. Okay, this right here, this is the big aha moment. Just look at this matrix. The single most important thing to see is that these models are not competitors trying to win the same race. They're actually evolving in parallel, each one solving a different problem. You've got some focused on making the old world work better, while others are busy building an entirely new one. So what's the bottom line? We are not heading toward one single dominant design that wins everything. Nope. What we're actually seeing is the rise of a multi-model ecosystem. And crucially, all that important backstage stuff, like custody and compliance, it doesn't just disappear. It just evolves with the tech. Different models are going to thrive by serving different needs. So far, we focused on the how, right? The architecture of these systems. But that naturally leads to the next big question. Okay, so how is this stuff actually being built in the real world? What do the regulators think about all this? What are the big financial institutions actually doing? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into in our next explainer. So if you want to continue the journey, make sure to subscribe. We create these short explainers on blockchain, tokenization, and the future of finance. And hey, if you have a question or an idea for a topic you want us to cover, just drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.